Hey, Chris back. I was reading over the author notes and draft for to Golden Lake Valley. Just remembering that this author note was mostly written in say like 2009 or 2010. Yeah, I was homeless and was trying to write. Trying to write at night and be safe at the same time. Anyway, there was a candle and I couldn't really see. I had like a notebook, I think it was, or something like that, with a few scribble ideas that I got from a local charity. I think it was a charity that had breakfast like every few days or something like that. Anyway, I had a few candles that I think I got from the same location. I'm not completely sure. Um, or another like tea candles or floating candles, something like that. Anyway, so I was sitting there at night and like not really anything to do, and it's so quiet in that area, mostly like at nighttime or at night. It was nighttime. It was I think it was in fall. I want to say it was like fall. It was just after being like really, really, really hot summer and like right before the rainy season in Southern California. So anyway, I was out there and I had a candle and I was like, I want to write. There's like nothing to do and it's like so quiet and there's just like this really neat idea that I have and I have so many ideas and what do I do with it? So I started writing and I was like, okay, this story began from no, actually that part was added later. It was this or the sentence. It's this story began from a tiny imagination developed into a tale of people who were very much real and easily understood within our era. So I was like people, but not really. That relation, I could probably totally delete that. I don't even know why I was thinking that. So I'll probably do that. But anyway, I was out there and I was writing. This was like by the candleside, the pen travels in the flicker of breath to the realm of night. I was noticing that every like breath I took in and let out because it was fairly still out there took in and let out that the flame would bend with the wind. So anyway, as the shadows danced across the page, like uh, the kind of like a melding of light and darkness, back and forth with the movement of the flame, my breath. Anyway, so across the page, provide very vivid and lucent visions. So I was like, okay, lucent, kind of like dreams where you're in control. You can see what you're seeing. You can even move around in an image of the sort. It's not so much a vision, uh, it's more imagery. Like you can form complex imagery, in your mind based on past visual experiences. So it's very vivid and lucid. Of course, words to describe anything from the sort in the place, and you say, hey, I really like the idea of this being there or that being there, and this would be like completely relative here, and so on and so forth. Uh, birds or flowers or time of day type sounds and stuff like that. So it's like writing is like art. All hand design matter should exhibit skill and form. And I'm thinking like, how do I get my handwriting better? Handwriting's and this goes back to a book I was reading at the library during that time. How do I get my handwriting to be as accurate, like my experience, as the information that I read in that text? And I was like, okay, my handwriting is really bad, And I was reading more information on how to like become more accurate with that. It's that someone can examine a piece of writing, like handwritten writing, and begin to like decipher small little details about a person. And that was penmanship. It's another book that I read. I don't remember the title, but I know it had something to do with that. It was writing, like pen writing, handwriting, penmanship. Anyway, penmanship is a writer's craft. Say a writer's craft is led neatly with just enough pressure to guide. So it was, more physical. How does that relate? So you go visions, writing, physical. It's a balance to me. And then also show like accuracy within knowledge. I was helped with that a lot because I was given everything in life that most people are. So I was like, yeah, I did best with the time that I had, and try not to, yeah, try not to did not exist in a situation like that. So it's the hand of a woman and the eyes of precision have peeled for me my dignity, or me dignity. So it would be peeled for me dignity. And in her criticism, I have learned of expectation. So, yeah, a lot of that happened, then, before, after, throughout my life. It's mostly been predominantly women. I'm like, okay, it has, but at the same time, there's a block on femininity, which is incredibly weird. So yeah, that's logical, I guess, in a sense, most logical. Uh, so it's most of it hasn't been as like rough or difficult as it could have been. I'll just put it that way. Okay, so wow, what am I doing? Actually, it's deleting files. So let me empty this recycle bin and go back to the reading. So I was like, okay, and it's an entire idea, and I was trying to form like a little map representation of it and all this stuff, like so I wouldn't forget it. And the realization is that I couldn't, because I had these like directional cues at the same time which were completely off. It was more of like a visual that is placed on a board in front of me. Like I would say, okay, there's south, and it's off to my lower left side, like a directional cue. So I was like, okay, lower left side, south, it was a map, basically a map, like a vertical map. Anyway, just north river was dumping from over a small ledge. So, not something large enough. And I have this thing of like slow trickling water. I don't know, just not calming or anything. It's just like visually appealing, especially so clear when the under or the bed of the stream or river is like mostly pebbles. I don't know. It's a visual. Resistance was suspended in the air like dense fog. That was smog. I changed the word because, concise meaning. Any second, something could jump out and take their breath away, like a bear or, something like that. Very, 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 very wild. So no serious danger was showing its face. The thought of a restful night was too good to be true. It's like, anyway, cautious, tired, and dirty, they took long gulps of untainted water, like it's so pure right there, and rinsed the dust from their skin. A few women unpacked, maybe 3, overstuffed wagons and tethered the horses while the men poked around for a few, like poked around, cowpoke. Anyway, after a quick meal of cornbread, beans, and pork, those were staples. Pork, not so much, unless it was salted and dried. Beans were like dry and they cooked them everywhere they went. Cornbread, on the other hand, was like something you didn't get as much of, but was a common staple as well. Cornbread. The meal was dry. The beans were dry. The pork was dry. It could all be hydrated, but at the same time, not decompose. Common staples in, the wagon Western movement. So they say, they hunkered down are, so said, they hunkered down along the dullness and sound, or, I always get this wrong, dullness and songs of waterfowl. The dullness, comma, and songs of waterfowl to lull them into the night and to sleep. So, I don't know, trying to remember the sound of the waterfall. I think it was mostly the same type I would have associated with being on the East Coast, which is what was it? I'm not gonna remember the name of the bird. It's like a doo 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 doo, but I can't make the sound right. I can't do it right. Anyway, it's a bird on the East Coast and often found near lakes. It's a waterfowl. They were able to sleep by that. And then waterfowl come out of the lake, go into their little nests, and they're good for the night. She's like ground, so kind of trippy. Anyway, good morning. They slowly and drearily woke to a mesmerizing, luminous golden sheen. I'm like, I don't think they see bears very often. The gleam cast into their widening eyes was like the purest and earliest form of inspiration. It's like, dang, we have a place. What do we do with it? The surface of the lake sparkled and twinkled like golden flakes. So we'll say not gold flakes, but golden flakes. Not actually gold flakes. It reminded me of the gold rush. Trying to remember the exact dates. I think it was late 1800s, early 19, something like that. So moved by this beauty, they decided to give in to their travel and name the surrounding area Golden Lake Valley. So that was basically, the pre-story. I don't know, prologue. I don't really understand that as well as I should. Soon after this nearly unanimous naming, a grumpy old man in disagreement with the name headed away, spitting some jig or another about not wanting to be bothered with the woes of the world. So he's like, that's Old Man Clive, by the way. Anyway, in his absence, the old Westerners designed, planned, and constructed a quaint and constructive city. That's why I say constructive. Yeah, quaint and actually, we'll go with like a more modern term, which is productive. Let's say productive city because they are a pine to the east. So from the lake to the east, I think it was, is the Golden Lake Valley, city of Golden Lake Valley, something like that. I don't know. I gotta go back and check for accuracy too. Following the waterfall to the river north, they explored majestic hills where the river became crystal clear waterfalls, and the air was cooler, nearing the drifting opaque white clouds. So you go, okay, drifting opaque white clouds reminds me a lot of New Mexico right there, but not as moist, I guess. So kind of like Texas. So we'll say central Texas as opposed to south, and that's way more moist. And then, north, it's a lot drier. So you go there. They met the friendly natives that showed them a meticulous hunt. So they learned how to hunt, game type stuff. And then I was remembering history and stuff like that right about there. From boulder-strewn peaks, they could see west to vast and open pastures bound by forest and ending in the south with a deep craggy plateau. Okay, so this is also location. Each place has each group has a place. So you have the old Western travelers in the city of Golden Lake, and then you have the natives near the majestic hills, not quite there. They follow the river south often, and then you go Craggy Plateau. That's the place that the bandits like to hang out, and then also south is where the grumpy old guy went. It's yeah, that's where he went. He's like, I don't want to be bothered by it. Anyway, some of the men after our exploration returned to the city of Golden Lake with tales of fur and supply gifting monsters the native called bears. They're like, yeah. They showed them thick, dense pelts. See, like we can read at a certain level, right? So it's like not very complex, not very whatever. But you go supply gifting monsters the natives called bears right there. That brings me to the point like the old Western travelers, they didn't know much about the area that the natives already had. So it's like, stay as close as you can as history as you can. And then also sort of embody the idea that we're not as smart, I guess, okay, how do I put this? We're not as smart in instances of past as we are developed and smart in future. I'll put it that way. So it's kind of like communicate that somehow. Supply gifting monsters natives called bears instead of just it's a play of words, just saying bears, or typing bears. So maybe it's like fur and bears. It's no supply gifting monsters natives called bears. They don't know what the heck bears are called, kind of thing. Anyway, they showed them thick, dense pelts and promised a contribution of a few every spring with others such as rabbits, deer, rabbit, deer, raccoon, mountain, bighorn, and squirrel. This is part that would really tick off some people, but at the same time, it's fiction, and it does not in any way relate to future the next part of the story. So that's not ever mentioned again. Like we're going hunting kind of thing. It's not. As for history, that was huge trade, and I remember that from history. So it's like why default in that sense. I'm like I can't. Anyway, so the crag has become Clive's Bend. That's old man Clive, you know, the grumpy old man who left so long ago. That's him. And that's not how it's written, but whatever. With a rifle in one hand and a scar choking him from the other, he set his foot down, named his own little piece of land. So you go, property, actually. He's been he's been alone ever since. The stench, right. The stretch is often the attraction of bandits and connects Golden Lake Valley with River Country, a bustling southern town. Okay, so yeah, it looks like actually that the lake is north as opposed to up to the northwest or northeast. Looks like up to the east in the little map picture. So there's a lot of changing during this, you know, and a lot going on. So I'll get there. As far as this, I was trying to relate the little picture idea to the message itself. That was over 10 years ago, I think. Actually, let's say 7. No, that was almost 10 years ago. So anyway, throughout the years, many wagon trains and herds of cattle have passed creating heavy packed ground, right, through the city of Golden Lake, known as the Road to the Frontier. I remember references to that, the Road to the Frontier. Road to the Frontier, you know. It was war wrought with peril and stuff like that. So anyway, the use of the road has changed due to the demands of inhabitants of Golden Lake Valley. Into the city on the road from the south, Golden Lake Valley is introduced by merchant wagons and merchant shouting at anyone in a radius of 100 feet. Take a look at fruits, tools, kitchenware, and various other products. Off to one side left is a huge fenced lumber lot and carpentry workshop owned by Mr. Berber. So you go, most of these merchants aren't really, okay, the focal point isn't really on the merchants coming into the area, but they are shouting. So really the only visual that I understand this is sort of like a downward crane movement toward the actual like shop fronts, little trodden earth area, and past the merchants kind of thing. So anyway, there's merchants, and then there's also a later mention of a native lady that is also seen within the merchant wagons and merchants. Uh, don't really point her out at that point, but later, you know, she becomes very very visual. And then you go there. There's a temporal. Is that no? Temporal connection. It's time, or I think it's time. Or no, is it time? It's a differentiation of time. Or you could just reference it in the future or something of past. Is like, okay, here she is, a merchant, you know, and when she makes her introduction, is basically relation, you know, she's of the city, regardless. I'm like, wow. So anyway, radius of 100 feet to take a look at fruits, tools, kitchenware, and various products. Off to one side left is a huge fenced lumber lot and carpentry workshop owned by Mr. Berber. He's a stocky, thick frame man with the skill of an artist, so we'll say artisan and blacksmith. Or just artisan blacksmith. Is that even the artisan? Someone who makes an art of their work. So you're like artisan blacksmith, or with thick historical relations to the formation of a process, I think. Artisan, define. Worker in a skilled trade, especially one that involves making things by hand. So he is artisan, artisan blacksmith. His dark eyes and hair are often so smothered in sawdust that his true identity is often hidden in a blonde veil. I like that one. Just beyond is Scully's Saloon, the rowdiest spot in town. The name could have been Scully's Tavern, but he liked the rhythm and rhyme of the S's. So I go, okay. here's a few different thoughts. One was Scully's Salon. Saloon. Oops, spelling is incorrect. Saloon. So you go Scully's Saloon, the rowdiest spot in town. You go the other thought was tavern. And then I was like, wait a sec, two different relations. And then also at the same time thinking, what the heck is saloon? What's the difference between saloon and the like a synonym for saloon? It was tavern and a few others. I searched that at the library too. But he likes the rhythm and rhyme of the S's. I thought, after that, about Sully and or Scully, what Scully might think. He's like, I like the sound of that when he was, trying to form his bar. His place is hugged by Janice's humble hotel, and Janice. Anyway, so a gathering spot for handsome hunks and wayfarers and drunks, because many not so fortunate suede men find their boots on fire after a visit to the saloon circle of Janice's mooches, and then you think, prostitution and stuff like that. Okay, they're mooches, leave them alone. It's like Mr. Juan Hernandez, loyal fellow. Let's see, actually, this is punctuation error. There. Mr. Hernandez, a loyal fellow, opened Bota's boot shop. And I'm like, oh, shite. Botas is boot, so it's double. Was it repetitive or redundant? Bota's boot shop, get it? Like, if you don't know what Botas are, you will soon. They're boots, get it right. Okay, so he's loyal. Just across the street, as a sort of reminder. You don't get that. You don't get that. It's funny. It's a relation from, Bota's boot shop to Janice's humble hotel. They catch their boots on fire after getting drunk, having some. Anyway, then they go across the street to, Mr. Hernandez, and they're like, yo, we need some boots. He's like, yeah, I've heard that a time or two. No, I don't know. They're not that, like, thick in accent, I'll say that. Anyway, adjacent is a place to clean up. Adjacent is a place to clean up with Dill, the barber. This place is spick and span, and that's the way cowmen leave, kind of thing. They're not rough, but they're kind of, it would be a rough thought. In the center of the city, the bank and clock sounds like a beacon of purpose, promise, and reward. Like base everything on time and you'll be all right. Protected by James Schwartz, the sheriff, and Victor Lopez, his deputy. Mr. Cootie, the banker, pretty much has his say. Mr. Finance, we can definitely make a relation at this point in time to, Mr. Finance and monies and the president and stuff like that. To say his voice is though seldom heard on topics other than finance. So it's like open it up, have a chance. After a quick monetary withdrawal, the most commonplace people head is the lot caddy corner. That's what my mom used to say, caddy. I don't know why caddy corner. I don't know what that means, like adjacent maybe. Adjacent and, yeah, there's different word plays. Mr. Barnaby's thrift and grocery store. Mr. Barnaby's a pretty big guy. Out back, his corral is usually showcasing the newest prize workhorse for sale, and is like squealing pigs, noisy sheep, and clucking chickens. Or commonality, especially in westerns. So to the furthest reach northward in town is quietness with expectation of tranquility and learning. And they need to go to Cozy Cafe, photography studio, library, and florist boutique. It is the latest area departing wagons will experience. See, and then here there's Lily, an expert in horticulture. Yikes. Lily, an expert in horticulture, and Violet, a landscape artist, have created a Victorian-type boutique of floral arrangements and fine women apparel. They were invited to Golden Lake Valley by Mr. Stanley, one of the oldest and wisest members of the community. So you go, yeah, Mr. Stanley, he's a librarian. Not only is a librarian, but he has a double function at that point, which is a teacher or professor of some sort. Not sure. I don't really reference the word professor. He just teaches, like, what he knows. He reads a lot, tries to pass it on to people in that city that are, not opposed, I guess, or seek knowledge for their trade or knowledge for, to aid them in life. So that's Mr. Stanley. Mr. Preston, he's a flamboyant photographer, means he's always zipping around from one place to another. Him and Mr. Stanley, sort of, yeah. Anyway, so quaint photography studio. Small, he carries his equipment with him wherever he goes. And when his studio is closed, he can be found anywhere a flower is in bloom or in turning season's fall. Turning season fall. In a turning season's fall. Actually, that's possession. Seasons. So you say fall is kind of possessed by the hierarchy of seasons. So you go, hierarchy, season. there are four seasons, and then you say the fall. Fall is a word referencing the actual season itself, but in the occurrence that happens for it. So you go, okay, the action is fall. The reference or indirect relation is to the season fall, and then the hierarchy that possess, the defining sort of understanding of the four categories is season. So basically, the action is possessed by the season. So anyway, happens more in that season than any other, and it's a direct reference, kind of. No, it's an indirect reference. Their works are a sight to behold and are often sought. Anyway, the majestic hills become home to the hillsmen and hillbillies, as they like to be referred analogously. So you go, they are hillsmen and they're hillbillies at the same time. Not really. The hillsmen are more okay in that sort of structure. The hillsmen are more supervising of the mountains, I guess, or hills, whereas the hillbillies are kind of like civilians, if you want to make that reference from like people in civilianhood as opposed to government kind of hierarchy relation, which isn't really. They're just hillsmen and hillbillies. So the hillsmen are kind of like the rougher guys that the hillbillies sort of are led by. The hillbillies don't mind it just as long as they have their thing. And then it's a lot different, as they like to be referred analogously. So it's like, don't get us wrong, or don't make a mistake, because the hillbillies are not the hillsmen, and the hillsmen are not the hillbillies, but they are hillsmen or hillbillies. So the hillbillies are responsible for much of the city's market of fish, and the hillsmen have lingered in the high-rise folds, even though they are fairly civilized. So you go less than the hillbillies. So when the hillbillies come into town, there's an issue sometimes if they're not bringing fish or market items. There is one character. I want to call him Jack. I think his name's Jack. Later in the story, Jack is a young guy. He's a hillbilly that likes to come into the town, beg for coin, drop by, get a couple drinks, and then sit out by a trough and laugh at people. So, there's the character, main character that will be kind of introduced at the beginning as well, and she does not like him at all. One of the main characters, the less rough of the two. So the foothills have been settled by the Garrisons, a very simple three-member family interested in sheep herding. And then, let's see, we could blow right through this. The Tithes are saw people, lumber people, and then you go further. The Clemmings are hunters, I think, if I remember correctly. See, Clemming, which is freaking hilarious. Are you serious? North California, Clemming, I think it was. Was it Clemming? I don't know. I'm thinking Clemming. Clemens. One of the guys' last names used to roommate with. Was it Clemmings? Damn, I don't remember. Anyway, boys took pride in gathering the wild beasts from land and breaking them into suitable companions. No, actually, they're herdsmen. Not herdsmen. What do you call them? Not herdsmen. Pastures to the west, the Clemmings boys took pride in gathering the wild beasts from the land and breaking them into suitable companions. That's right, this is Kitty's dad. What am I thinking? The Clemmings. What was I thinking? Something. Oh, it's like Crusoe. Okay. South. Okay, so you go, Mr. Clemmings. He's a guy that went out and said, hey, we're going to need horses because they're stronger in this type of situation to help us build this city. There's lots of trees over this way, blah, 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 blah. He's like, Mr. Clemmings, Mr. Jeff Clemmings. He's in his late 40s. You go, his wife, Mrs. Clemmings, has insisted that the ranch is a homestead surrounded by a ranch just because the Callaghans tend to wander from the bunkhouse into the cabin after that, kind of thing. Anyway, wandering from the bunkhouse to the cabin after the hypnotic scent of her delicious blueberry pies. I'm like, yes. And it goes without saying that she has some of the best seasonal fruit and vegetable yields. So, like their family is one of the most prominent for that type of thing. They also have an expo, so the city that they live in isn't really dependent, I guess, each upon each other as opposed to each one having place and benefiting every other. If that makes any sense. So then you go Callahan's, 10 to 1 from the bunkhouse, blah, 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 apple pies, apple pies, apple pies, apple pies. I'm telling you. Blueberries, even better. Cobbler, tried to do that, didn't come out. Which reminds me of a friend of mine. So this is Golden, or yeah, he was a friend of mine. Never let that dude die without recognition, ever. This is Golden Lake Valley in all its splendor. Even though many years have passed, not much has changed. It all began with the prettiest homosexual woman a woman would ever know. You go, you know the relation to that, I could probably change that. But I'm not going to. Because, there were a group of people. No, it didn't change for one, it changed for many. So, as usual, the city clock chimes 2, merchant wagons press on into distant space. Place is not known. It's basically northward. I'm like, okay. She, Katie Clemmings, 22. And a beauty to talk with long, smooth golden hair and slender physique is captivating. And she visits the bank to deposit the day's crop earnings for her father. Let's not go there. In long stride, she quickly passes Loudon Rouse. Fighting. I'm like, see, how's that possible? This is me. But not me. Just the thought itself, not the visual or imagery. Like, but who? Blonde. Okay, so slender physique is captivating as she visits the bank to deposit the day's crop earnings for her father. Long stride, she quickly passes the loud and busy carpentry workshop, barber shop, and finally the saloon. She doesn't much like the roughness. Wait a sec. Long stride, loud carpentry, barber, saloon. Okay, yeah. She doesn't much like the roughness of labor, nor the association as a tender tot. Just ahead is the exclusively lacquered bank. Exclusively, meaning that only the bank is lacquered. The building is like a Yule log in a wooden chest amongst pine chips. I've always liked that play on word right there. I don't know, that one, just remember it. So I don't know, among pine chips. Among pine chips. So yeah, you go Mr. Cooter. I like the relation. Mr. Cooter, the wrinkled old banker. Maybe I should change that, Mr. Cooter, though. Steps from the lavish bank, expressing a gentle content about her presence. And he's like, being an only child, being even an heir. Katie's inheritance of land and home is likely to become the interest of many an investor. Katie clasps her hands over his, like, he's older guy. She's like, hello, Mr. Cooter. Anyway, I don't want to go into that. This dialogue, and basically, she's stopping by, and she's like, hello, and he's like, hey, being very, very polite. And then you go entering the bank. Actually, let's say entering the bank. They're silenced by the loud, menacing questions of Bad Girl Robbie. And then I remember writing this, and then laughing, just laughing. Freaking Robbie, like the woman with the most masculine traits. You say Robbie, met with more adversity, and it's justified. So I'm like, I understand it. Anyway, she's in the bank, and like all kinds of just random annoying stuff comes to mind, and she's like approximately Katie's age, right? And tattered around the edges. She was known in these parts by many a fellow and often encouraging camaraderie, right? Like, what is this chick's worry? The chaps clinging to her jean-hooked thighs seem familiar. A G seared, she's checking her out kind of thing. Like, where the heck is this from? And then, it goes on further. She has interest. Father passed a saddle in southern river country. Even though she has been along a few times, Katie had not seen this rambunctious, wavy, reddish, brown-headed, and Errett. Now, Errett, not sure exactly why I think it was so she noticed like let's see what she was wearing, her hair, Erit, I think the way she was talking was it. Trying to remember. Introducing air into a material. Aerate. Maybe not. So it wasn't aerate. Uh like arrow, aerate. Introduce air into a material. Uh Warm. Okay, so how would I express this? The word that I'm trying to use would be exasperate, maybe exasperate, exasperate, intensely infuriate, irritate, and exasperate. No, as like an adjective, not a verb. I can say verb. Irritate, intensely infuriate. She is she is that though. Exasperate. Third person present. This wouldn't be past tense, which would be the ed form. It would be present. Uh, Third person present. That'd be like a connection to me. So it would be exasperate, tend. Tend to beauty. So you go expect expect. Excuse me. What do you expect me to do with this? She's like, like a no. I'm not sure the facial expression. What do you expect me to do with this? I think I left that. So left that at that time. Robbie admonishes the Western style lobby of spiffy dressed tellers. She's like, "What do you expect me to do with this?" Kind of getting more and more infuriated, I guess, from exasperate. So you go, infuriated. What do you expect me to do with this? I hope you're certain my business is needed here. She's holding like maybe a few coins or something. I don't know. It's money of some sort, but I don't know if I referenced that. I might have just read it. I don't think so. I think it's more just on the character herself, if I'm remembering correctly. And you go, "What do you expect me to do with this? I hope you're certain my business is needed." And then she goes, straightening. This is Mr. Cooter straightening the tan and brown bow at his neck. He's like, kind of situation. And then you're like, Katie, yeah, clearing his throat and leaving Katie in astonishment. She's like astonished. Mr. Cooter questions, "Miss, what seems to be the problem?" And at that point, I'm thinking that something's going on with Katie. Something's going on with Katie. She's like astonished. She's like, "What the, how, who, all the right questions, I guess, kind of, but at the same time, more so familiarity, I think." And then he questions, Mr. Kudu questions her, "Miss, well, what seems to be the problem?" Kind of thing. But he's an older guy. So, reading some of the dialogue, "Well, Sir Coot, my lovely teller has just informed me," and then Kitty's over here like, "Lovely." My lovely teller has just informed me. She has no clue what to do with my gold. And we already know, like, in Western history, that there were several women that were mistakenly more masculine than women and referred to as men on several occasions. So you go, Robbie explains with her arms flailing, and Robbie could not possibly be confused with male. She just couldn't. Or, masculine. I mean, masculine she could, male no. Alright, so the gold is yet collected this day. I might want to stop. So the gold is yet collected to this day. Please return at 4 with the union. And he burdens. Robbie breezes by and bursts through the doors, just bam. You hear a lot of clacking, just like wood clacks, no dings or anything like that. So it's clack, clack, Mr. Cooter waves the lollygagging tellers, which are like, all sort of gathered around, sort of worried. And, kind of situation that's not good to be in. Return at 4, and then realizing that, dramatic occurrences, I guess, are not as uncommon in life as often referenced. So, Return at 4, he returns to Katie. My sincerest apologies. He directs her to a glossy cherry desk, stacked with loose paper sheets. Aligned an envelope slitter with a feathered pin, he asks, and the amount. Or we could say, and the value. We'll say the value. And the value. Because I think I like that a little bit more. She's like, $21 and a nickel. I think I changed that. $21 and a nickel. I changed quite a few of these. $21 and a nickel. It was less than that. It says a week, I think, a week's earnings. Or day's earnings. So it's $2 and a nickel. We'll go $2 and a nickel. Yeah, $2 and a nickel. She exposes her 2 wrinkled bills, so we'll go 2 wrinkled bills and a shiny silver coin. Who could this loud, annoying yet? I remember this in elementary school. It was you have this coin, this coin, this coin, and this coin. What is the value? And the questions, and I'd look at the question, and I'd look at the picture of the coins, and I'd be like, I don't know. Kind of situation. I remember thoughts from that long ago. Or I forgot the value of this one. This is 5, kind of thing. Shiny silver coins, but that was me. Much, much, much before I should be remembering that. Silver coins, and I'm like, that's okay with me. Who could this loud, annoying, yet very attractive cowgirl be? From where had the winds blown her? Would she be in Golden Lake Valley long? But that's a style I don't like. It's more wind, more subtle and calm. Like breezes. Very slightly waving trees, I guess. Slightly waving trees and a puzzled look or puzzled expression. Katie with the puzzled expression. So you go, these are questions that she has and she doesn't know yet, and attraction that's already been established. So she's like, wonderful, the deposit is complete. And then you go, that's only a visual. You go, that's a lot of thoughts. Why was she questioning? Wonderful, the deposit is complete. And then, delighted glance and, thank you. I'll see you again tomorrow, Mr. Cooter. It's something she does on the daily. With a linen purse, I was like, linen, dangling against her hip, she sachets thin cotton dress, right, drifting against her knobby knees. Across the diamond-planked floor, into the bright sun, and out onto the dusty walk. So, I think that gathers interest, which is like, okay, which groups are most interested in the blonde Western chicks? Sort of. Okay, so I'm gonna decrease the heat a bit. There. It's warm. My knee just popped. Yeah. Sitting here quite often. Anyway, she has a linen purse and a long cotton dress, which was knobby knees, not really long. Back to it. Trying to remember some of the visuals. It's not as focused, I guess. Like the storefronts. It's not as emphasized, I guess. What you see is the character as opposed to its surroundings. Okay, so not long ago, Kitty was arguing the likelihood of future advancement and maintenance of the land surrounding the enormous house. Actually, this is Kevin, the enormous Kevin. Her father had spoken with Mr. Stanley about the instructions. Her no-instruction for Katie on the knowledge of the ranch. And, ranch, Kevin. Farm. Like ranch, because he's more of a horse farmer, and there's like influences of each. Anyway, we're not keeping it incredibly separated at all. It's more of a direct sort of melding several different cultures, and I'm like, yeah. So anyway, she would be meeting Mr. Stanley soon for lessons. lessons about something that she had seen, even never, wait a minute, some things that she had seen, never considered being anything but instinct and common knowledge. Katie would be in sole ownership of the house, land, and the herd, should anything happen to her parents, or would certainly be inherited for that matter. And that's serious, you know. Okay, then you go, hey, Robbie interrupts, tossed to and fro in saddle atop an anxious Palomino. I forgot what the horse's name is. Her horse. Yikes. Anyway, and there's Robbie. The sun catches a moment in Katie's eyes. She instantaneously blocks the blinding rays with one hand. Is this your horse? And Robbie, like, right about there appears from, like, off the left side saddle. Left, be flank. It would be, for, the front, Katie. Off to the left side of the oh my gosh, I searched saddle parts. What's it called? That knob at the front where ropes can be tied and it's used as like a foundation, like a, or no, what is it called? Not foundation. Uh, Control mechanism. Like a rope can easily be, like 3 rounds and then, becomes like a control mechanism. I forget what that's called. I searched it anyway. Anyway, she's off to the left side of that part of the saddle. That's a visual anyway. Or not visual, but yeah, I wish it was visual. They're like, no, we don't like Western. So I'm like, whatever. And she's like, yeah, she's a trick or two. Robbie scans the city, nearly certain she's out of place and in good time. She slides off her thick saddle heavily onto the ground. No, I changed it. Anxious. Robbie interrupts, tossing to and fro in the saddle of an anxious Palomino. It was a lot more boring at that point. I changed that a few times. I remember editing it now. Yes. I was like, how do I describe this? What does she do? Is she on the horse? Is she off the horse? I don't know. And I was like, wait a sec. It's interesting. She approaches. Katie's walking away. Changed it completely. Told you. Okay, so anyway, hey, anxious Palomino. She's like, hello. Sun catches a moment in her eyes, but I can't do the hello part because that is clearly not possible. She's like, is this, the girly way, is this your horse? And then she's like, yeah, she's a trick or two. And then she scans the nearby city, slides off, boom, onto the ground, thud. Tell me you did not steal some lonely man's steed, or you go. It used to be beggar, and then that was the advent of Jack. Of course not. She cocks a grin. What brings you to Golden Lake Valley? And then service to the bank. Alexis, your tail just somewhere else. Like now. Of course not. Robbie cocks a grin. It's only 7 o'clock. What brings you to Golden Lake Valley? Katie inquires. Services of the bank. I'm like, ew. My name's Robbie. This is Delilah. She points to her horse, or like pats her. I'm from River Country. What do they call you? And it's like I'm sure there's one somewhere. If not, it's fairly easy to learn if you find the right one. And then my name's Katie. And she's like, Katie, what do you do around here in the city? Or what do you do here in the city? And then she's like, Katie, finagle by the ever so subtle ease of Robbie to collect her interest. Heather's at the edge of words. She's like, she begins to pinch the cloth of her purse. Not quite sure how to take this. Like, kind of, and I explain this, like, intimidated, kind of, but not really, not sure. Kind of situation, but anyway, Robbie's dark eyes wander aimlessly for some clue as the next moment's reaction. Kind of primal type. It's in private school at the library not far from here. Katie smiles. Oh, you're one of those. And then this is kind of awkward in the next few statements, I think it is. How much different can you be? Robbie's not able to easily answer this. I guess you'll just have to determine. And she's like, these are big words. The battery of hooves on the hardened soil passes a trove of gallant hillsmen. You know, like, yeah. But anyway, reminds me of um, not really cavalry, like lumberjacks with some sort of cavalry look. I don't even know how to explain it. Gallant hillsmen. And at their backs, in a linear array, are the business fronts, with a few gawking observers. Robbie senses the sheriff's situation or station. She senses the sheriff's station. She must have been in trouble more often than she should be, but you know, there's like, assume you'll be returning to school. She says, lifting herself, which could be chaotic for a few people. And then you go endless, but what happens next? She says, lifting herself effortlessly, and some for even then. That's fine. Up into the saddle. When can I see you tomorrow? And she's like, manages in uncertainty. Well, tomorrow too, but no, it's too fast. Well, tomorrow too, but and then Robbie slammed the reins, disappears into the heat and dust of the afternoon. All she needed was two. So anyway, at the library, leather-bound books are aligned perfectly within rows and columns on every shelf, and each shelving unit is about the height of a 20-hand horse, with a small stool at each end. Yeah, 20 hands. It's a tall horse, Alexis. Here, go ahead. Scoot. I was talking to my cat about the cat character in the story, which is Pawpaw. He's introduced top of a grain sack, I think it was. He was like sleeping evening. And it's funny because there's reference to a few mice in the barn too. Pawpaw not doing his job. Scoot. Go that way. She's like, I will press the caps lock. There. Rub a cheek. Rub a cheeky rub. Anyway. So anyway, there's tomorrow too, but and she's taken off. And then Kitty, goes on to the next area, which is sort of break in visual. So you go visual from there, taken off to band the library, and then it goes on to lady and lady entry. Yeah. Katie entering the what was that? Entering the library. There we go. If you keep the characters in perspective on the dustless hardwood floor, because you realize Mr. Stanley is an older guy, and Mr. Preston is meticulous, very, very flamboyant guy. So it's dustless, but a bear pelt rug sprawls. And there were hunters and stuff like that. Bear pelts, Alexis. Bear pelts. Kept them alive long ago. And that's the only relation. Across the walls, where windows are not, decorations range from the first few issues of Golden Lake Valley news sheet to a small exhibit of butterflies. This was one of the first things they did, like printing presses and stuff like that. Getting machinery from one coast to the other, that must have been like freaking wow. But anyway, a mysterious woman with short black hair, like an accessory to her white cotton lace blouse, and flowering black ankle skirt, an awkward fair-skinned man, very similar in casual disposition, lounged near the center of the room. Mysterious, who the heck are these? Oh yeah. So the mysterious woman is Asian, as well as the fair-skinned man. They're both Asian. But anyway, excuse me, Katie whispers, looking out from a thick book. The woman quietly acknowledges, "Oh, you must be Katie, Mr. Stanley's student." And like really super pronounced. I'm like, great. And then she's like, "Yes, if you don't mind me asking, where is he?" I'm bored. He's yet to get you the message. She retrieves a case of horticulture photographs in grayscale. So actually, instead of photographs, I wouldn't say grayscale because the mature, what would you not liquid, chemicals used to process photographs then would not have rendered a gray image. It would have been something more. I want to say, um, no, not hazel. Why the heck is hazel coming to mind? Hazel. Anyway, sepia would have been something sepia probably, or maybe that was later. Maybe it was gray. I don't know. In any case, grayscale. We'll just keep it grayscale because I think I'm getting something confused at this moment. Instant, a short and pizzazz stricken woman comes through the entrance with a bouquet of colorful blooms. I was going to change that to blossoms. It was not blooms, but blossoms. Stems and leaves. Katie is slightly unsure of the queerness she is experiencing. Lily. Lily is Asian. And Violet is, forget the horticultural lady, Lily. And Mr. Preston is the photographer. So Violet suggests, well, Lily, he has been a bit absent-minded lately. But different. I can do it. She's like sophisticated. Mr. Stanley, no, he's extremely purposeful. Kind of thing. Lily informs Katie, we are to instruct you in today's session. Katie, we are to instruct you in today's session. Katie fingers a daffodil. Yeah, so what shall I learn from those images and these beautiful plants that will be useful to farming? Mr. Preston's long outstretched palm points toward a slanted back chair. He offers, please sit here, and then Katie sees herself. This day, Mr. Stanley has recommended a more detailed session about using plants to appeal the senses by placement. Lily explains. Definitely not. Violet glances toward Lily as she smiles warmly. I'll be home soon. And then Violet leaves as Mr. Preston furthers. Treats agronomy, soil stuff, like gardening, with the same respect as horticulture. And to someday teach new arts to later generations. And I'm like, what? There's self-sustaining understandings. So you have agronomy, the soil types, changing soils, changing plants, seasons, water use, stuff like that. What would be most successful, self-sustaining in that type of environment? Like gardening. And gardening was mostly flowers then, I think it was. The same respect as, horticulture. And then you say horticulture, everything has a name, place, name, place, understanding, category, classification, blah, 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 blah. So then you have somebody teach this new art to later generations. And then Katie responds with a blank stare. Well, I guess we should begin. And concurrent, Mr. Preston and Lily are still staring at Katie. And then goes on further. Mr. Preston has never courted, courted. I'm like, whatever. He's a simple man with an eye for detail and beauty, and he lives with Lily and Violet near the timberland. They keep to themselves, and for the most part, they enjoy the finest qualities of life. And there you go. Katie has wondered about their arrangement and their similarities. So then that was the end of chapter 1. It goes on to the next chapter, which was the Clemmings homestead spreads across the wooded pasture like a draped canopy of a country painting. Maple, hickory, and spruce are like strokes winding into patterns, demarcating each lot with abstract boundaries, and the spray of wildflowers is like spatters of various paint shades. Or no, we'll say I learned this one. It wasn't shades. It was pigment. Paint pigment. Paint pigment. And then you go. Also, let's see, that relation was to, or wordplay was how I would describe, I guess, that one movie with, which kind of makes me sad, but, that one movie, What Dreams May Come, how Robin Williams, he, like, I guess, stoops to lift a bloom, which was just painting itself. So anyway, skipping by the nearest daisy patch along a stone path, outside a long fence marking the grain fields to the west, Katie sweeps a bundle of delicate flowers into a pinch. Let's get over that most accurately. Centered a gigantic two-story lot. Wait a sec, what? Demarcating each lot with abstract boundaries. Oh. Tell me it wasn't. Tell me that wasn't part of it. What the world has become. Wait a sec. Where's paint pigment? No, skipping the nearest daisy patch along the stone, she's happy. Marking the grain fields to the west, Katie sweeps a bundle of delicate flowers into a pinch. Smush. Sadness. Oh. That's what I'm talking about. Can't do anything that like we do every day. That makes no sense. Kind of just lost interest. Pinch. That's what I referred to it as. It's like a pinch. Grasp. To grasp, into her grasp. No, it makes sense. Pinch. It's only a few. Bundle. No, it'd be grasp. No, pinch. It's hand, knuckle oriented. It's more lean and elongated, as opposed to grasp, which is more strength oriented. So it's not that a pinch is lacking strength. In the formation of things, it's less knobby. It's more elongated and elegant. So you go, okay, centered a gigantic two-story log cabin. It's hugged by morning glories. So just, Twitter patient. Sweet peas. Sweet peas, one of my favorite scents. Sweet peas and narcissus, or some of my other favorites, honeysuckle. Thick walnut tree supports a seated swing. Wooden seated swing in the front yard. Grass gives way to a stone path leading to the Kevin's wooden front porch was cottage, East Coast, Irish type. Not Irish type, was it Irish type? The Scottish Irish. Scottish or Irish cottage. Is that even possible? You know, cottage, it's East Coast Cottage, Pennsylvania. Flowers, vines, wicker furniture, lakes. Anyway, right, thick walnut tree supports a wooden seated swing in the front yard. Grass gives way to a stone path. It's kind of like a meld, like a visual meld. I don't even know how to explain it. The more described, it's like being able to accurately, I guess, describe a piece of imagery so that others can understand it too. In a very simple, sort of generic way. So it's sort of, yeah. Anyway. You go cabin's front porch and hoof and wheel-trodden path to the gates of both sides. Gardens nearly fully developed are at the east and laden with carrots, parsnips, potatoes. These are mostly what do you call this? This is not a garden, but more so brain's not working right now. It's not a garden. Like a vegetable garden, very small. It's more like a not a pasture that the horses and cows eat from. It's more so a plot vegetable, vegetable.